All right, folks, let's get started. Minutes from our August 10th meeting were distributed. Do you have any comments or questions on those? If none, someone make a motion to accept. Dave Moore, our second. Mike Fitzgerald. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Next, we move to the budget report, which is attached. On the revenue side, we received the partial administrative fee from Burial Health for processing their sales tax exemption documents shown there. We had some investment earnings also for the month. On the expenditure side, we have salaries, work on the ID website, and two expenses out of Tryon, our normal expenses of some mowing and the electric bill for the wastewater pump station. With that, we received a notice from National Grid that electric bill is actually going to go down. Because they have a demand charge now on the bill, right? But because the usage has been below a certain threshold, they're going to be removing that demand charge, which basically represented half of the bill. So yes, so we're looking forward to seeing that. So that's it for the budget report. Any questions on it? Joe will send me on with a motion. Is there a second to that? Joe Gillis. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Moving on to committee reports. Mike, you had the monthly bank reconciliations. Give those to very good, thank you. Fulton County report. Mr. Green, anything to offer this morning?
We had our board meeting yesterday, and we dealt with two different issues that were brought up the last time I was here. There's the steps that are necessary to take. One, I'll just read it right off. Resolution authorizing an agreement with the Environmental Design Partnership for Engineering Services for the Fulton County Sewer District Number 5, the New York State 3038 Phase 1 project. It's $750,000 for the design, that sort of thing. So we voted on that. And we also voted on a resolution awarding a tourism destination grant to the Parkhurst Field Foundation for the Legends Park at Parkhurst Field. The way we're going to end up doing it is cut it into 4 parts, 4 phases. And for each phase, they'll get $250,000 for the total of $1 million. The last $250,000 payout, as I understand it, won't be paid until it's completed. Okay, so that's two of the things that we discussed yesterday that would be of interest.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Morning, Grant.
Good. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm traveling for work. Yeah, just wanted to give everyone a quick update on some of the things we have going on over at CRG here. Before I start, I just found out yesterday actually that we got approved for $500,000 micro enterprise COVID grant. So we'll be able to serve more Fulton County businesses utilizing that money. So that was great news over here. We're also going through processing documents as part of a EPA submission requirements for the $300,000 EPA grant that's out there. We had Mathis Public Relations gave an update and progress report on the countywide site inventory and assessment project for the county's Economic Development and Environmental Committee at the July 28th meeting. We're still competing and looking for a site for an agricultural development project. That company recently requested additional information on some of the sites that we presented, and we're continuing to work with them. We're also competing and working on site information to attract a company to build in Fulton County. The New York State ESD is also involved in that as well. Couple of different site selector things are working. We did present several sites to a site selector and are competing for a company to build in Fulton County. That'd be a new business. There's also a request from a second site selector looking for a manufacturing site. We sent them a site and are having discussions moving forward on that. Still waiting to hear from Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board about being a spoke for the Community Navigator Pilot Program. That's an interesting program, and we're hoping to tack onto that. So discussions are ongoing there. Continuing to work with financial incentives for one manufacturer, and also meeting with a local company who needs some assistance with their workforce, just like so many other people in the area. So we'll see what happens there. We've been in discussions, and those discussions are still ongoing with an out-of-state glove sewing operation that's looking to possibly move into the area. So we'll see where that goes. We're continuing to work with a larger company that has requested our assistance for consolidation financing. So that's kind of some of the stuff we're working on as far as marketing and business leads, business inquiries. As far as the 2021 Micro Enterprise Grant Program, we recently approved 15 micro enterprise grant applications out of the approximately 25 applications we've received. So that's good. And as I mentioned, we've got another $500,000 in the bank to assist us going forward with that. Community development marketing. As far as Gloversville, we're continuing our efforts on many fronts with the city there. The local waterfront revitalization program. There's a possible anchor project on Main Street that we're starting to work on, and some other projects there. Johnstown, continuing our efforts to strengthen the downtown merchants group and supporting them as much as we can. And then Northville, there's a few opportunities that we're looking into in Northville. And that's pretty much all I got. Any questions on that?
Quick question. James Hanna, does he primarily, I know he primarily works for the area of Gloversville, but is he the one that's reached out to Johnstown and Northville?
He's, as far as I know, he's been a part of those discussions. I don't think he's spearheading that. But yes, James is, yeah, James is the Gloversville downtown business specialist. Absolutely.
Any other questions for Grant?
Yes. One more question. The demolition work that was done, how soon will that be completed? I see it looks like it's mostly done, but and what's going to go in there? A park, or you know?
As far as the timeline goes, from what I'm hearing, it would be 10 days or so before that's completely done. As far as what the intent is after, this has been long gestating. I've heard parking, I've heard a park. So what the end result of all of that will be, I think it's kind of still up in the air.
Hey, Grant, I have one question to Scott Hensley. Could you tell me a little bit more about the Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning Board being a spoke for a community navigator pilot program? That's the first I've heard of this.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I'd be happy to send you a link on it. I was just kind of taking a look myself late last week when this popped up. So yeah, that's something that came out of the American Recovery Plan Act that helps, obviously, rural economic communities, the economic downturn caused by the COVID pandemic. So they're basically looking, what is it, $100 million? Yeah, $100 million that the president and congressional leaders supported that investment. So now you've got all these, obviously regional communities that are going out and trying to tap into those funds. At the end of the day, it's really to support minority-owned businesses, mom and pop stores, that kind of thing. It's not really to support larger businesses. It's really intended to focus on the small ones. I don't know, and this is a good question, Scott, and I just don't have the answer, why we're being a part of a spoke of that kind of larger project. But that's definitely something I could find out and get back to you on.
Good. Thank you, Graham.
You're welcome.
We have the whole business, our Nexus Renewables project, the documents been executed. Sarah's continuing to work with their attorney on closing documents for providing sales tax exemptions. Nexus is advising that they are expecting to start work on the project this fall, and get that project going. So, other than that, there's nothing, no other action needed. Just a quick update. With the next item, the Fulton County site inventory, Grant just gave you a quick update on that. That work is ongoing. Under C, the proposed sale of the former maintenance building out at Tryon. At your last meeting, you approved extending from July 15th to September 15th the deadline for Lot Holdings to complete its due diligence on buying this building. My conversations with both Mick Mullins and Randy Lott last week, they have still not received the quote from National Grid to provide that new electric service. There was some progress made on, I think, in trying to get that information to them last week based upon some conversations and emails and texts that were going around, but he hasn't received that. So I'm recommending that we extend that deadline a couple more months to give Randy additional time to get that information in hand, and so he can make his final determination as to whether or not he wants to buy the building. He still wants to. Again, he just, the same story from 2 months ago. He needs to know how much National Grid's going to charge him, so before he makes that commitment to buy. So I have in here as an action item to approve extending from September 15th to November 15th, the time period for him to put that due diligence. Okay. Joe, send me over with a second. Any questions or?
Yeah. Do we know what Mr. Lott plans to do with the building in regards to electric usage?
His intention is to use that building for offices, manufacturing. He's going to look to lease the space and spaces out for uses that are allowed within the park. Okay, and basically the building just needs power, to one for whatever uses are going to be, for usage, 2 for lights, 3 for heat. So power, that's what he's intending to do, is to put the building to use, one of the uses that's allowed within the park. Okay, does that satisfy your question? All right. Any other questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, we are next going to talk about Vireo and the proposed Huffman car wash. Excuse me, Mr. Moore is excusing himself because he has a potential conflict. He had a state previously. All right, with Vireo Health's proposed expansion project, building demolition work is for the most part complete. Site work began during the week of August 23rd and is ongoing. With respect to that water line, back in August, you agreed to pay for 75% of that project cost, which increased from 85 to 100. But you asked to see if the members of the water board would also agree to that increased cost. They've done so, and they have executed an agreement with us stating such. So that has been done, and the agreement is here for the chairman to execute today. With respect to the sales tax exemption, I reported earlier, they had asked Kara to get that done separately from the pilot documents, because Virial was already starting construction with their project. And so they needed to get the sales tax exemptions in place. So we did that. Kara's suggestion, we asked them for that partial payment of the administrative fee for doing so, which they did, and that fee is reflected in the budget report we talked about earlier. The lot sale and the pilot was scheduled to occur this week. That may be delayed a little bit, Carol.
Yeah, I think I spoke with the attorney for IIP and the attorney for Vireo yesterday, and they're just working through some of the details to satisfy some of the requirements that IIP has with respect to the documents. They just want to be sure that if Vireo was ever in default of any of the terms of our agreement, how that kind of plays out. Would they get notice from us? And I said, we have no problem if that's what you want to include in those documents, that type of language. So they're working on making those revisions and getting them approved at their at IIP. And but the plan is to go forward with the property purchase this week. So they, due to the title company schedule, they requested that we move it to Friday. So I have documents here for the chairman to sign, and then I will send them to hold in escrow the documents to convey the property today, but everything else will hold back until we finalize those documents.
With Kara just mentioned IIP. That was kind of the next thing on the agenda.
Oh, sorry, that's
No, that's okay. That's okay. Vireo Health is working with this company called Innovative Industrial Properties, Inc., IIP, on the financing of this project. IIP, they're based in San Diego, and they are a real estate investment trust, specifically working in the medical cannabis industry. And what they do is they come in and buy facilities and lease them back to cannabis companies. And then the cannabis companies take the capital from that purchase and use it to invest into doing other things, right? And so Vireo's existing facility out there is owned by IIP. IIP bought that facility a number of years ago, and Vireo took that capital that was raised from that sale and used it to put some greenhouses up and other investments that they need into that existing building. The same thing is going to be happening here with this particular project. And if you look down at the bottom, as the structure of this project with Vireo is going to be as follows. We are going to deed the 92 acres that Vireo is buying. We're going to deed it to Vireo. Vireo will almost instantaneously deed it over to IIP, right? And that's where there'll be a transaction of dollars, all right? IIP will then lease the property back to Vireo. Vireo will sublease it back to us, right? And then we'll sublease it back to Vireo. It's kind of a complicated one, but understanding that in order for us to provide the financial incentives to this project, we have to have an interest in the property, right? State law says that's the case. And so that's how we're obtaining this interest, is through this particular structure, okay? Now, on the next page, page 5 of the agenda, we need to take two specific actions to kind of approve the structure. The first is to approve Vireo Health deeding and transferring title of the property to IIP that we are selling them, and as a separate action to approve the ground lease between IIP back to Vireo. Okay? Does everyone understand what we're being asked to do here? Are these worded to your satisfaction? Okay. So on the first action to approve having Vero Health deed and transfer title to IIP to the property the IDA is selling to Vero. Is someone willing to make that motion? Joe? Joe? Is there a second to that motion? Jane? Sorry, I was looking down. Any further questions on this particular motion?
Want to be sure the state doesn't have an issue with this four-way transaction.
We need to prove that what we need to show is that we have jurisdiction and control over the property. And the controller's office has been, that has indicated that a leasehold interest is sufficient. So we get the leasehold interest, we're getting that from Ariel. And then we are required to lease it back to our project to undertake the project. So we've done this structure in other scenarios.
Years ago, Todd, structure used to be that the company would deed ownership of the facility, of the property to the IDA, and then we would lease it back. But there were instances where because the IDAs had ownership interest in properties, where there were issues such as lawsuits, liability issues, IDAs were being dragged into these matters because of that quote unquote ownership issue. So the attorneys working on IDA projects came up with this new structure, lease. And that's what we have been using over the last 4 or 5 years here as structures for IDA projects, as most IDAs in New York State are currently doing. As Kara's indicated, it's a structure that the state has endorsed.
So from a procedural standpoint, we've asked them to prepare a memo of their lease, so that will go on record. So the way, what will show up on record is a deed from the IDA to Vireo, a deed from Vireo to IIP, a memo of lease from IIP to Vireo, a memo of lease from Vireo to us, a memo of lease from us back to Vireo. And we take all those documents, we'll put those into our application. And so when any, I don't even think it comes up in the Paris reporting. It's just, but that's how we show our,
That's how we show our interest.
So will this be similar, you said about the home base, will we have an agreement with them, like a 20-year deal where they can opt out and then pay us $1,000 a year?
Our lease back to them would probably be 10 years,
10 years.
which would be tied to the term of the pilot. Our pilots are 10 years. Okay, so those two terms will match up. This would be a 10-year lease, commensurate with the 10 years of the pilot. Once the 10 years of the pilot's done, lease expires, and there's no payment then. Now, again, the payment is always only made if the company elects to terminate the pilot early. Okay, if it runs through completion, there's no payment made at the end. Okay, so we have a first motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Second motion is to approve the ground lease between IIP and Vireo. Is someone willing to make that motion? Todd? Joe with a second.
One
Any further
second.
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. We're looking at a closing on the land Friday.
Right.
Okay.
That's what they're part.
Okay. Will there be a transaction, a wiring of dollars at that day?
The proceeds.
Okay.
for the
So
sale.
when we receive those proceeds, okay, we in turn we're going to be cutting checks back to the three entities that you previously approved payments to, Cushman, Wakefield, Fulton County, and the CRG. But we will wait till those funds are received before we cut those. So I'll probably ask you to stop in sometime next week to sign those checks, but you've already approved those payments. Just want to make sure you're. Okay, moving on to the Huffman Car Wash project. Construction is expected to start in September this month. It should take about 10 months to complete. We had a public hearing on this application previously. The project is being built on the parcel of land of the former Traverse Diner, and was discovered when the title report came in that there is a small sliver of this parcel that is actually in the town of Johnstown. Was not aware of that until this title report came in. This sliver of land used to be part of the New York State Route 38 right-of-way. A couple of years ago, DOT auctioned it off, and the former owner of the Traverse Diner took it and attached it to this the main parcel that they had. Nothing's being built on this little piece, right? But it's still part of the parcel. And so when it was discovered, Kara spoke with Huffman's attorneys, and to be safe, what they're recommending is a second public hearing be held. Because the first public hearing, the city of Gloversville was notified, the county of Fulton was notified, and the Broad Alton First School District was notified. Because we thought at the time those were the only three taxing jurisdictions that were associated with this tax parcel. So the town of Johnstown wasn't formally invited. The irony of the whole thing is that there was only one speaker at the public hearing. Who was the speaker? Jack Wilson, town of Johnstown supervisor, but he wasn't officially invited and notified. So to make sure, cover every basis here, it's being recommended that a second public hearing be held. This time, the town of Johnstown would be formally invited, and the public hearing will actually be held in the town of Johnstown. So with that, there's a resolution attached to your agenda that is the same one that was adopted to schedule the first public hearing. And we're looking to schedule this public hearing for Tuesday, October 5th, 10 a.m. Over at Town Hall. I've already got the area reserved, so we should be all set. Just need now someone to make a motion to approve this resolution to schedule this public hearing. Sure. It could. Much more. Much more.
One more Jack, some comments.
I'll pass it. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yes. So,
Probably.
And Jim, that's the Broad Alton First School District, and that's Gloversville?
I'm sorry, did I say, I'm sorry, I said Broad First, and it's Lovers. I'm sorry. No, my bad. So, if someone would be willing to make that motion to adopt the resolution, Mike? Is there a second to that motion? Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, could someone go grab? Yeah. Dave? Yep.
Jim, out of curiosity, does Dave have to leave meetings or can he just abstain from voting now?
Talk about that. Current best practices is to recuse yourself from the meeting. Okay. It's not necessarily a mandate, but it's considered the best practices as recommended by the ABO. Okay. Okay. Moving on to the background studies on that 20-acre parcel that you authorized back in August. The phase 1 environmental site assessment work has been completed. And the good news is, based upon their review, Hansen, Van Vliet determined that there were no recognized environmental conditions identified, and so therefore no further environmental site assessment work was recommended. So that was good news. On the ground geotechnical investigation, not groundwater investigation. That work has been completed. Last night I received the report from CT Mail. And so that report is here, and it contains a series of recommendations relative to someone who's going to build on there, the types of foundations and stuff. We did find, as expected, bedrock in various depths on the site, but they also found that they had a small John Deere backhoe out there, and when they did encounter bedrock, which was in the form of shale, they were able to rip it pretty easily. So even if there's if you ever get a company that wants to go there, depending upon how deep their foundations may be in a certain area, if they encountered bedrock, they said it was easily able to be removed, and that they could actually put the foundations right on bedrock. So it's kind of good news, bad news. Bad news is if you encounter it, you can still strip it, and it can be used for actually put footings right on top. So we have those documents now. Again, I think those will help. The purpose of doing this was to help in trying to market this one piece of property that we have left in the park. So yes. Yep. Yes, they will. So moving on to new business. I submitted a proposed 2022 budget, which is attached to your agenda. You are not required to approve it today, but you're certainly welcome to approve it today. You don't have to approve it until November 1, but we thought it would be appropriate to at least put it out there for discussion. In summary form, the budget is down about 14.5% from last year, the overall budget, and the Tryon Technology Park budget is down even further. There's funds allocated in the budget to work on preparing shovel-ready sites and to do some marketing. There's no subsidy included in this year's budget from Fulton County. That has been progressively declining over the last few years, and that will not be any funds coming from the county next year. But in return, I plugged in on the revenue side the first lease payment coming in from Nexus Renewables, which is budgeted at $34,000. So that's the first year of revenue from them. And so we look at the budget up top. Everyone be on the same page here if we could, please. The main budget. Okay. You look up top, you see other operating revenues. That's where the $34,000 from the Nexus lease is shown. We also have the $1,200, which is the lease we do each year to lease lands out of Tryon for agricultural purposes. And we also receive administrative fees for projects that we have pilots with, and we have 2 of those now at $400 a piece. So we have an $800 of fees shown there. Under non-operating revenues, estimating $1,000 for next year. Never know what that's going to be. As you can see, the municipal subsidies for this year is $5,000, zero for next year. The county's decision to do that. And then down at the bottom is the next one is other non-operating revenues. And basically what's that is, that's the balance. You take our total expenditures down at the bottom, subtract the other revenues we just talked about. That is the balance that basically we look to take out of our reserves to fund the budget for next year. Okay. Under the expenditure side of things, salary and wages for the executive director and CFO, shown there at $32,000. Professional services contracts, we have the Weston Company, which does the audit and our wage statements. Legal, increasing that from 8 to 9, and yeah. To her request, she didn't request it, but we, I think it's appropriate to do that. Whether we spend it or not, hopefully not, but at least to have it in there. Other expenditures, there's the Tryon Technology Park. And with that, if we flip the page and look at the Tryon budget, go through that really quick. We're looking at again, revenue at $34,000 on the expenditure side. Mowing, recommending we increase that a little bit next year. One of the things that was observed this year was, and I think we've all experienced it with the weather, the amount of rain we had. At least I know at my house, I normally would cut my lawn every 7 to 10 days. Well, it seems like I was cutting it every 4 to 5 days this year. And kind of a couple of times when I drove out to Tryon, the front entrance, you know, we had 6 or 7 mowings for the year out there. And that just doesn't seem to be enough to keep that front entrance looking as attractive as possible. So I'm going to recommend next year when we go out to bid for mowing services that we increase the number of cuts out there to just keep that front entrance looking as presentable as possible. As a result, suggesting the increase only by $1,000, what that would be.
Possibly a 2-year
Yes.
agreement. Might face so much of the first year in order to have 2 years, but it's just 1 year. Every year we're getting a new person.
Just thought that may be another way to better incentivize someone to when they're quoting us. So that'll go out next April. Insurance keeping the same, electricity keeping the same. I put in there some dollars for promotion and marketing for Tryon. Again, it's something that whether you do it or not will be determined next year, but just to have some dollars allocated for that. Under capital projects, Tryon development area, again, proposing some dollars there to help try to promote that particular site. And then sewer repairs are the same, miscellaneous items the same. So the total expenditures for Tryon for next year coming in at 73, down from 112 for this year. Okay, so we take that 73 number, go back a page, and that's the number that's plugged in for Tryon for 2022 here in the main budget. Okay. Now they put in 50,000 for work on shovel-ready sites. That's something that we'll always have out there, and that's the same as what we had allocated for this year. Same for meetings. New York State EDC membership, it may increase. I put a few extra dollars in there because I'm anticipating that to increase. Fire taxes for properties that we own, again, just put a number in there. And the only other change was on the IDA website, increase that a little bit. Because one of the things that Betsy's been talking about wanting to do was to set us up with a LinkedIn page. Okay. And if we do that, doing it and then keeping that current is something I think will be at a slightly additional cost. So I put a few extra dollars in there to cover that if that is something you wish to do. So talking about, again, a total budget of around 201 for next year, down from 235, which is 235 this year. Questions? Fire away, Joe.
One biggest expense we talk about the traffic, how you part put in a figure. I know this is all loose, it doesn't mean you can't spend it. $25,000 for promotion and marketing. Again, my question, what is the CRG doing? You know, what is, they're supposed to be one marketing, so why are we taking our money to promote our own stuff? So I think we have to see really, say they are having people look and do different things, but it's just something I feel that I have to do some marketing myself. At least at $25,000. Spend it, put any figure in there. But again, my question, why is this here? We're actually giving a percentage to them to help them incentivize them. Yeah. So have that figure in there. Probably too much to me that we should have it in there. And then another
Yeah, because what I was thinking, Joe, was how to track. Once we have this sale with Imperial, the primary piece of property that we're going to have left out there is going to be that piece on the other side of Building 3. Probably a 60 to 70 acre tract of land up there. And again, my thought was, let's develop some marketing materials for that and define a site. You know, and go out there and do the geotechnical, do a phase 1 specific to this particular tract of land. Develop a nice map of that particular parcel. Might even want to do some topo. Okay, and to have a package of materials relative to one, to market that as a single 60 or 70 acre site, give that whole package to Cushman & Wakefield or whoever, or CRG, or whatever the case may be, but to really focus our marketing to a specific site. That was what I was envisioning when I put that in there at 25,000. Knowing what it cost us to do these things for the 20 acre site, have a 70 acre site, just, you know, there's going to be it's going to be a little bit more. Right? Well, maybe it's not marketing. Maybe it's bad, put it in the bad spot. Okay.
I mean, it's good to know what we have out there so we can have it right. Again, it should be stepping up and saying we have this plan. Again, like into a meeting or is there the second year of their agreement? How are they marketing it to them?
You might characterize that as project planning, something like that.
Probably the wrong place to put the dollars,
Yeah.
but that was my intention with that 25,000. Okay.
Let someone else.
Development plan.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah. We can certainly change that to a different title. That was the intent. Okay.
Then, question here, that's the Emory fee, $14,000. That line, but again, are we developing something with the county and the CRG? And is that ever going to come together that we have one website that really is or does IDA still have to have their own separate $14,000? I just thought that other discussions we trying to make it so they didn't have their own, we didn't have our own, county has their own. She's getting $14,000 for all of us. One website that.
I remember that, Joe. Speaking from the county standpoint, the county's always going to have their own website. Because of all of my departments and everything like that. So I think the concept was that each entity would continue with their own website, but it would be user used. They point to each other. But there were certain pieces of information that we wanted all websites to have. That was mainly focused on data, like demographic data, business data, whatever, so that if someone were looking, for Fulton County or whatever keyword they do a Google search on, and it comes to whatever website and they're looking for data, they can stay on that website. Same data, if they're on the CRG website, with that data, et cetera. That was my understanding.
You think, Joe,
So
we were
linking them or?
that?
Is he linking them now?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I think we talked about the data piece, but the data is all the same on the websites right now. They all point to each other, which is good.
When we first started having discussions about our websites and getting them to work together, kind of dovetail with how the economic development infrastructure works in Fulton County. And we were struggling with this sort of disparate approaches to the overall mission of economic development. And there had been a suggestion put on the table that maybe there'd be a single website that everybody's driven to. I think ultimately the discussion was each entity kind of has a responsibility to maintain their own websites. There was discussion about possibly having sort of a landing page that then distributes to each individual website. And I think ultimately what we found out is we're all kind of using the same person, and let's try to get that person to kind of tie each website together so that there can be better clarity on what each organization's mission is and that kind of thing. So it's not quite probably aligning with what we had originally talked about, but I think there were some pragmatic difficulties with doing what we had initially thought we might try to do. That's my recollection of things. And I remember sitting in a meeting with Betsy kind of saying, well, I get what you're saying, but there's challenges. So we ended up where we're at now. Having said that, I think there might be some room for continued improvement and refinement. I think we still do struggle a little bit with that idea of, who gets the call when somebody wants to do a project around here. Some of the kind of challenges that evolved from that still somewhat gray area or responsibility. So How many, when you speak about data, how many hits are we getting? How many inquiries are we getting from our website? And, $1,000 a year every year. 10 years goes by, we have $150,000 invested in this website. But we've gotten any leads. We've gotten anything for a lot.
Well, understanding here that there's certain baseline level work that Betsy does on our behalf every month. Okay, for example, the video recording that is done here, that has to get posted to our website. Scott will send that to Betsy, the recording, and then she does that. Our agenda and our meeting notes every month have to get posted onto the website. Carol gets those and does them. So there's certain baseline level work that Betsy does every month to keep our website up to date. Okay? That's part of that that's majority of that fee. Okay, it's just the hours that she spends every month, you know, doing these things to keep our website up to date. We have a business page, and so we send her articles. Okay, which is the kind of the you know, when somebody Googles our site, you know, it comes up to this particular landing page, and there's articles on there about Fulton County, and she posts all those, takes them down, puts up new ones. So there's that. All of that is just routine work that's done to keep our website up to date. We have other things that the ABO requires us to have on our website. We prepare those, send those to her, and you know, for example, this Nexus project. You know, the project application that they submitted to us way back when, that has to be put onto our website. So when we get that, we email it to her, and she puts it on the website. All of these documents that we end up signing, certain of those things have to get put onto the website. So there's all of this that's being done just to maintain our website, Joe. That is part of that, most of what those costs are. She's talked about getting us on LinkedIn. That would be a new service that she would perform on our behalf, and then again keeping that updated as time goes on. So that 12,000 that's in there right now for this year, most of that is just all of that regular work that's being done to keep our website up to date and to be constantly putting documents onto the website that are generated, you know, through our day-to-day business. So
We meet with her remotely every other week, something like that. Hit or miss sometimes, but
on a regular basis.
We meet. Probably one thing we should do, I know we talked about in the past, we do have Google Analytics, and we should probably plug that into the agenda.
Yes.
Just so, you know, these are the number of hits coming to the site, you know, where they're coming from and stuff. It's an easy thing to do. Probably should do. I think that's kind of getting to. Yeah.
And then she provides us a report.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And to be honest with you, I'm getting them. I haven't been distributing. I will start doing that. But I get, she sent those. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Any other questions on the budget?
We got 2,000 for one, should we put something out? Last year we had the
I've got 500 under miscellaneous expenses, right? Okay, very last thing. Mike, I don't know, want to change the number? I mean, one thing with our budget is that if something comes up during the course of the year that's not in here, you always have the ability to just draw from the reserve. Because that's what finances most of your projects, most of our expenses. Okay? You do your best to allocate dollars, but you also have that flexibility that if something comes up, you've got that reserve account, you can just draw from that to take care of something, which we've done numerous times in the past. You want to adopt it now, or do you want to wait till next month?
My community, I'd like to wait a month. I'd like to get with the governance committee and have a conversation.
That's certainly fine. Very good. We will bring this back at your meeting in October, and the governance committee is with respect to salaries, right? That was your. The governance committee is charged with recommending salaries for staff. Okay, and so I had sent to the governance committee, as I do every year, an email saying, you know, it's time for you to consider salaries for 2022 for myself and for CFO. Governance committee hasn't had a chance to complete their work, all right, and so hopefully we can get that done, you know, before the next meeting, and so that the budget, I put some extra dollars in here not knowing what the actual, what you're actually going to be recommending. But let's, if you want to do that, that is fine. And then next, we'll present it back. The recommendation of the governance committee would actually be specifically included in the budget. Okay. Alrighty, last item, board training. Make it easy on you this month. One of the requirements that the ABO has is for the IDA to put on its website a listing of all properties that the IDA owns. Scott, can you put that up on the board? Attached to the agenda is a spreadsheet titled Properties Owned by the IDA. Most of them are properties we talk about all the time. There's the properties we own in the Tryon Technology Park, properties we own in the Johnstown Industrial Park, Crossroads Industrial Park, but we also own a property. We also own some properties. Look up the first one. We own that very attractive, highly desired triangular piece of wooded marshlands in the Glove Cities Industrial Park, off of Industrial Parkway in the city of Gloversville. The city of Gloversville deeded that parcel to the IDA back in 1977, long before my time. But we own that parcel. And question is, should we try to rid ourselves of that parcel by offering it to an adjoining property owner? Is that something you should pursue? Because really, its size is only, it says it's 2 acres, but I don't think it really is.
It's 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's, but elsewhere, anyway, it's a very tiny piece of property.
Taylor made.
Here's my thought, based on what Warren was saying about the money, the park field, which is in that picture. That could be potential
Parking? Yeah. Right across the street.
Who owns that adjacent lot where the person is? So, I think you get the thing that we covered that.
What's that?
Get the thing that we covered that when we're talking.
It's a, no, it's just a vacant piece of property, right? And again, I have no idea why it was deeded to the IDA way back when. But it's of no value to us. And so let us reach out. If you're okay, we can reach out to we can reach out to Dave Karpinski and see if it's would be something of interest as part of further.
How wet is it? Is it a swamp or?
I wouldn't walk through there with your Sunday best shoes. Let's put it that way. And we'd have to check. Don't really know that for sure, but anyways, so that's one parcel. Pan out and go down to right there. The IDA also owns this little tract on the east side of Claremont Street in the Johnstown Industrial Park. That is about an 1.5 acre parcel, right?
Yep.
1.45.
Yep.
Again, of little value to us, not really big enough for a project that has size. Didn't know if you'd want to keep it or look to offer it to the adjoining property owner there, or to across the street, which is property owned by, no, to the left, the other side of Claremont, which is right there, Pioneer Window property. you be interested in reaching out? See if there's an
There's
interest?
any use for us to have it.
Nope.
Don't see any point holding on to land that's not useful to us.
Correct. What's that?
Is there an easement to the south?
That's the National Grid, that's where National Grid's transmission, high voltage transmission lines are. Okay? Down on the east side of Route 38, there's that parcel there that is a vacant piece. It's a couple acres. Further down, on that little triangular piece, that's the piece that the motocross or the gentleman further down had expressed an interest in that we haven't heard from. And then on the other side of the street are those two parcels that are to the left is that's the 20-acre parcel that we just did those background studies on. But to the right, these two parcels actually border Route 30A. There is a drainage ditch that runs parallel to 30A that just to the left edge of 30A that you'd have to cross that to get access to there. It's a fairly steep drop off. But those two properties are combined probably 10 to 11 acres. But the slopes are pretty significant, and we don't have really right now water or sewer services to them. So we could, if they desired those, we could add. We would certainly look to do that, or package them together and see how we would, as one site. Again, maybe do a geotech, do a map, do phase one, and come up with a concept plan, market that as a singular parcel, figure out how we would be able to get water and sewer there, and that may become another site that we can try to actually try to market as a shovel-ready site.
You wouldn't look directly at 30A, would you?
I would think we'd have to come off of opportunity, correct? Yep.
There used to be a house on one of those, correct?
Yeah, we tore down, correct.
Car wash there. The old car wash?
Yep, there's an old metal building there, correct, right there.
House right there.
That the building was right, yeah, correct. If you recall, we found people living in it. Squatters. That. Yep. And we'd actually, years and years ago, had actually looked at that tract of land as a trailer parking area for Walmart when they were having so many trucks parked on Opportunity Drive that we looked at that and actually did an engineering evaluation of the site, and it would have worked for it. The decision was made not to pursue it, but
Why was the decision made not to pursue it?
because Walmart didn't want to build it. We looked at it, to offer it, but they didn't want to do it. They tried to just improve things there through better scheduling. Because what was happening, trucks come to their facility, they've got a slot when they're allowed to come in. But if someone showed up at 8 o'clock and your slot was 10 o'clock, they'd basically park on the road for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So again, they tried to deal with that better through better scheduling, as opposed to constructing, operating.
As opposed to being a better neighbor and doing.
There's a couple companies down on the drop trailer out, and then they'll deliver it.
Yeah, really.
So you drop your trailer off the base, they'll deliver it.
So, and those two parcels on the east side of 38, those are the two that in our budget we have town of Johnstown fire taxes. Those are the ones that we have to pay the fire tax on. Even though we are exempt from paying school, county, town, municipal taxes, we're not exempt from paying fire taxes. Okay? So, that's your training for today. Just wanted you to see that we do own a few additional parcels above and beyond what we own in the remaining parks. And we'll look to try to reach out to some others to see if they might have an interest in some of those miscellaneous parcels that we do own. Okay. Just back to board training. Again, it was something that I'd asked for. Listed in your agenda is what we've gone through so far this year relative to board training. We talked about a variety of different topics. I anticipated over the next couple of meetings to talk about again, review our internal financial controls and some other topics. I guess my question to you folks is what I've been presenting to you as board training helpful? Is it in line with what you're looking for? Is there topics that you'd like me to address that I haven't done so already? If there are, just send me an email, please. If something pops up, just send me something that you think we'd like to talk about a little bit further. Because I'm kind of guessing at some of these things what's going to be best. So I would ask you to do that if you would. Okay. Is there any other business to be brought before the board at this time? Having none, I would like to ask for a motion to go into executive session for the purposes as described in the agenda. Someone can like Dave, seconded by Joe Semio. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Going into executive at 9:08 a.m. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Second to that motion, Dave. All in favor, say aye. Next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 12th. Would someone like a motion to close the meeting? Thank you, Mike. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Joe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Meeting is adjourned at 10:14 a.m. Thank you all.